New NBA Plus Stuff Pod. Talked about Dennis Schroeder. Can he be a star? Can he not? And then I talked about how I think Star Wars The Last Jedi is going to go. So you can find a link to that in the description. So I was watching the Portland Trailblazers and the Houston Rockets last night, as the Rockets just went nuts in the fourth quarter, because that's what they do. But as I was watching Portland, I started thinking about their situation a little bit. Where they are right now, chances they have in the future or whatever. How's this season going to go ultimately for them? Let's talk about it. So, I'm sure I've mentioned this before, and this is still the big thing with the Blazers, that their salary situation just sucks, you know? Evan Turner and Myers Leonard, if I can talk. Those two are making basically $28 million combined until 2020. And if those two just simply were not on the roster, then the Blazers would be under the salary cap right now. But unfortunately, this is the situation they're presented with, especially since Jusuf Nurkic as well as Pat Connaughton's contracts are up after this season, so maybe the Blazers would have to... You really don't want to trade a draft pick when you're a team that is kind of mid-tier like them, but you might be forced to just so your team isn't ridiculously expensive, but it is what it is. But if we can talk about the product on the floor, we got to give them credit for defense, because defensively, they've just been worlds better this season, 4th in the league, and that's been a problem for them. And I think one of the narratives for them for a minute has been, well, they got CJ and they got Dame, and defensively they're not as good. If you're going to pick two positions to have guys who are not very good defensively at, the backcourt spots would probably be the two. How many point guards in the NBA today are positives for their teams, even if defensively they're kind of blah, you know? Quite a few, and quite a few towards the top, if we're talking about like Russell Westbrook and Kyrie Irving, and Isaiah Thomas was great last season and all that. So I don't think Lillard kills you. And then with CJ, it's kind of similar. There's DeMar DeRozan, who's whatever on defense, but he's still a positive player. James Harden, So I don't think it's the end of the world if your two backcourt guys are not good defensively, and they've been able to make it work this season. Big part of that just being Nurkic, because Nurkic made them a lot better defensively. After the trade deadline last season, similar thing this year. And then the combination of like Aminu and Leonard, and both of them can switch, and Ed Davis, who's a pretty solid backup big. And you probably give some credit to Lillard and McCollum. I've seen moments where they've actually been kind of just better defensively this season, so that's good, So you're 4th in the league, but your offense is tanked. Kind of makes sense that it tanked, seeing as how last season you were, 11th at 110 points a game per 100, now you're at 106. Part of that's just Allen Crabbe being gone, because Crabbe was a really good shooter for them. But then also, Evan Turner's playing 26 minutes a game for them. I just wouldn't play Evan Turner that much. He's not shooting well from the field. They don't really give him the ball like that to play off of CJ and Dame. And it's just not an ideal fit. And if you replaced Evan Turner with just someone who does something else, like a knockdown shooter, for example, which Allen Crabbe was, I'm pretty confident they would be a better offense. Now, what sort of options does Portland really have? Well, given their salary cap, who on this team would teams want in a trade? Ed Davis, I think it's possible. Maybe you could swap Ed Davis for a wing who can shoot. Now, the chances are that wing who can shoot might be on a multi-year deal, because Ed Davis is on a 1-year. So maybe you trade with a team who's looking to get out of a contract, and the guy that you get back is actually someone who can help you. Those are the kind of moves you might have to make if you're the Blazers, just because you're really swamped on salary. Because even if you let Ed Davis go in free agency and you get his money back, like I mentioned, Nurkic is up, Pat Connaughton's up, and I think you need both of those guys. Hell, Shabazz Napier's been playing a lot of backup point guard for them this season, so you might have to make those sort of moves. Now, there are a few free agents out there who you could at least take flyers on. There's Matt Barnes, there's Mike Dunleavy, Gerald Green, James Jones. These are guys who at this point in their careers aren't really much besides spot shooters, but they're just in a tough spot because Evan Turner's playing a bunch of minutes, and I don't think Evan Turner really should be playing those minutes. As far as like why they are overall the 20th best offensive team, I mean, how many good offensive players they really have? They have CJ, they have Dame, they have Nurkic, and after that, it's just guys who, like, I mean, there's Turner, there's Mo Harkless, who's never really going to create his own stuff like that. I mean, he can post up on switches, but he's been worse offensively this season. His jumper has really fallen off. There is Pat Connaughton, who's a good spot shooter. We should give some credit to Aminu, who's actually shooting 48% from 3 right now, which is actually kind of nuts, and I'll be shocked if he maintains that. But as of right now, I mean, Aminu's looking like the power forward of the gods with his switchy defense and lights-out three-point shooting, but I don't think that's going to keep up. But there's just not a lot of players here, you know? You got 2 guys who can create their own offense, and everybody else can do some things, but it's really not enough. They're also shooting just less three-pointers this season, which part of that could be because of Allen Crabbe. Now, if we're talking about just the stuff that Terry Stotts is running, they have used Nurkic as a playmaker in the past. His assists are a little down based on where they were last season, but I would like to think that when Nurkic is back in the lineup, which, I mean, he's been in there for most of the season, I should say, you know, they'll have him posting up, and then they'll have guys cutting to the basket, and I do think they've done that a little less this season overall. I would hope that they could do that more. The other thing I would like to see, or actually, let me just talk about the offense a little bit more. Besides that, it seems to just be a lot of CJ and Dame pick and rolls or isolations, which is cool, but if there could be a little bit more stuff involved there, that would be nice. They have had some cut plays where they'll have, I don't know, they would have like the floor completely spaced out, and then they would have someone cut to the rim from the top of the key and get an alley-oop, and they would get a screen on the way there. Stuff like that, you know, that stuff's nice. But, you know, a little bit more stuff going on from Terry Stotts would be cool, but at the same time, it's not like he's working with the best thing in the world here outside of his 2 star players in the backcourt. One lineup I would like to see more of, that as far as I know has not really played, I can't find a thing for it on Basketball Reference that they've used this lineup, is Dame, CJ, Pat Connaughton at the 3, Aminu at power forward, and then Nurkic at center. Because to me, that's probably your best shooting lineup if Aminu is going to maintain this 48% from 3 thing that he's currently on, which even if he doesn't maintain that, they're still a better team when he's in there. I mean, if he's just shooting league average from 3 with what he does on defense, that could be good. And then you got Connaughton knocking down threes. I think that could be a good lineup. I think that one could be hopefully a good enough blend of offense and defense. I would like to believe that Nurkic and Aminu together means that that's going to maintain itself defensively, and then you got a lot of shooting. I'm a little concerned with Mo Harkless, just because even if he's not a natural offensive player, I thought he figured out a lot of things last season. Shot 35% from 3. Sure, he only took 2.5 a game, but it's a start, right? It's a good step in the right direction. And he had a lot of like post-up opportunities and shot about 50% from the field. And this season, he's really struggling to make shots. And I know there was a thing earlier where he was kind of mad about his low usage, sometimes being in the corner a lot. I would hope that doesn't become something negative, because I think Harkless is good, and I hope that he's just not a wash on offense. Because then if you have 2 wing players who are just not giving you much of anything offensively, him and Evan Turner, well, then you're going to have some problems, which is going to lead to you being the 20th best offensive team in the league. So overall with Portland, I mean, I think it's a little bit of hoping that Harkless can come on. I don't expect Evan Turner to at this point. But also some more shuffling with the lineups, and perhaps a mid-season acquisition for a shooter or potentially another ball handler who can do stuff. I did think about Lou Williams on the Clippers. That could be something. Now, Lou, yeah, defensively he's not that good, but I mean, you're making it work anyway, so depending on who you played him with, maybe it wouldn't be that bad defensively, and then he can make some shots for you, because you really need just one other guy who can create a bit and do some stuff besides Dame and CJ. And Shabazz Napier's been not bad at that, but someone a little better could be good. So yeah, Portland, I'm a little worried. I think there's a chance that they could drop off, and their offense could never really step up, so if they want to kind of get on the trade machine now, I think that'd be a good idea. We'll just see what happens. And one more time, new podcast. Talked about Dennis Schroeder, talked about Star Wars. Find that in the description.